Welcome to our get-together today, which is the result of the presence of dear friends who have been and are with Course Bookmap, as well as those special guests who are with us today. Are our special guests people who are here solely to understand the concept of CVD or Cumulative Volume Delta? That is Cumulative Delta. They're here, they're level 2 traders, they're not with the Bookmap course, and maybe they're not familiar at all. They're just here to learn this concept, and they're very welcome. I promise you that you'll definitely be satisfied because no one will teach you this concept as correctly and accurately as I will. I ask those friends who are our special guests to be a bit patient while I give an explanation to those who have been with the Bookmap course. Then we'll move on to the common concept that brings us all here, which is CVD, and that's actually the main topic of this section. Those of you who have been following the Bookmap course know that. In the explanations I gave about Bookmap, especially in the section about toolbars, there was a part I didn't explain and said I would cover later, and that part is the studies section. To be perfectly honest, the Bookmap study section really doesn't have anything that is particularly worth explaining in further detail. And it is directly connected to the fundamental technical indicators that are found in Bookmap, and to be perfectly honest with you, we really will not be frequently utilizing them in our analysis. I will now explain to you exactly why. The very first part of this system is the absorption indicator, which is the specific technical indicator that actively detects market absorption. The truth is, we give you add-ons absorption, we talk about it a lot, we even have meetings about it, but honestly, it's of no use to us and we don't even want to use it. So that's that. The second part is candlestick, which just puts the candles on your chart, which honestly, here in Bookmap, we don't need it. The third part, which is the only one among these that is byte-based, is the Cumulative Volume Delta, or CVD, which we are going to explore and examine in comprehensive detail here. It is specifically the heat map, which is directly connected to your heat map settings. Large lot tracker, when it's turned on, will display some white lines on your order book. Take a look. I turn it off, they leave. I turn it on, they come back. This relates to the large lot, which estimates how much of these orders placed here, for example, belong to a single client. It is merely a rough preliminary estimate, not particularly accurate or precise in any way, and it is not especially helpful or practical for our current needs. We will utilize a completely different specialized tool later on, which meticulously tracks the specific lot size for us, at each individual level, of the comprehensive order book separately. Next is the large trade alert, which gives you an alert. For example, what was the trade size? You set it up, and when that trade size is reached, it gives you an alert. That's that. This is the order book imbalance. If it's enabled, I'll turn it on up here so you can see it. See, this part appears, the book. And what is this? This basically shows you the balance of your order book, meaning it aggregates everything between sellers and buyers and shows who has the power in the order book. For example, right now the current order book is leaning significantly, about 7%, in favor of the buyers, and it clearly shows you this information in this specific way. Next is the strange level, an iceberg indicator, but we won't use it here. We'll give you the iceberg indicator, so this one isn't useful for us. Theoretical average is not useful for us at all, not at all. We don't use VWAP here either, because we don't have access to historical data in this version of Bookmap that we've provided to you. And that's why, since it's necessary, for example, for the VWAP session to be calculated, we don't enable it here and just view it on our own Ninja. This part is volume bars, which, if turned on, shows you these volume bars. These are basically showing your volume data in bar form, and you can also view them as delta. You can also view it as total volume, where buyers and sellers are clearly shown. There's nothing special about it. Volume data, which are those volume bubbles we use, and the related settings. Honestly, I could sit here and talk for 2 hours just about volume data and volume bars, but the truth is, it's not useful to you at all. There are people who explain these things in their courses and sell those courses too. But I value your time, and the truth is that you're ultimately going to use the default settings for these, and they're of no use to you. If you want to know what those options are, honestly, there's nothing special about them. That's why I avoid explaining these. The next section is volume imbalance, which, to make it clear, I'll turn it on up here. It shows you the volume, which is also displayed as a range chart, It shows you the aggregation of what you have here. Look, whatever I zoom in on here, if the volume leans toward either the sellers or the buyers, it will show you. For example, here, what's visible in this chart, the volume is 60% in favor of the buyers. Look, I'll go further, forward, 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 forward. Now see, it's completely sellers. This is the chart range. And now it might be useful for you to see on your own range chart which side the volume is favoring, dear friends. But as I mentioned, among all these, honestly, only the cumulative volume delta is somewhat significant, and when you turn it on, it will appear for you below as an indicator. The CVD indicator, which is the topic of our session today, and which we are going to discuss in detail. Up here, the options are symmetrical, include 0 and compact. Let's see what they're for. I'll set this to session range, so the whole CVD will explain what CVD is later. Don't need to get into this right now. Look at the calculations it's doing here. The symmetrical section means symmetric. That is, whatever numbers we have here, it shows you the chart in a symmetric way. The include 0 section says that whatever my data or numbers are, I want to see them starting from 0 onward. That means my chart should include 0 and its range should start from 0. And compact says, no, I don't want it to start from 0. I just want to see only my own data. You understand? This is very noticeable in the session range, but for example, when you set it to chart range, there's no difference between compact and include 0. Don't differ because in chart range, it always calculates from 0 for you. In the chart range section, no matter how much you look, I'll set it to compact no matter how much I move. Chart range. Now you'll understand why CVD is calculated from 0 at all. Don't overthink it, but just keep in mind that when you set it to chart range mode, since it always starts from 0, it shows data from 0. That's why you see no difference with include 0. The difference becomes clear in session range, friends. And that's that. You can adjust its order size. There's nothing special about how it calculates. As I said, it has a session range and a chart range, which raises the question, if we're going to use cumulative volume delta, in what situation should we use it? We use it in chart range, because we don't have access to historical data to view it in session range. Look, I'll bring up NinjaTrader now. This is the same cumulative delta indicator. In NinjaTrader, you see it as a session. You see that when the session started, it calculated from 0 for you and moved forward. Look, it started from 0 at the session start. But in Bookmap, since we lack historical data, we don't have the session start. It calculates the session from the moment we enter. That's why it's not useful for us, and we look at the same chart range. This also relates to our session's refresh point, which again is of no use, and this part also separates the buyers and the sellers. So ultimately, if we want to use CVD, we use it in chart range. Let's keep it brief, since we have a guest and need to get right into what CVD actually is, what kind of indicator it is, and how we can use it. All right, friends, we've reached the main part and the core discussion that everyone's been waiting for. One issue is that because I'm a perfectionist, sometimes I don't explain things, or if I explain it, I'll explain it from the ground up. So if I'm stating the obvious, please forgive me and be patient, because we'll eventually get to the important concepts and advanced crucial ideas. But let's get to our topic. We have a concept called delta. Now, in level 1, you dealt with candlesticks and were trained on them. You became more advanced, moved to level 2, got familiar with footprint, and understood that we can see the volume of buyers and sellers. On the right are the buyers, and on the left are the sellers, our usual bid and ask. And you learned about a concept called delta, where the buyer's volume is totaled, the seller's volume is totaled, and one is subtracted from the other to give us the delta. Now, in this example, the right-hand column, which is showing us the buyers, when their volume is totaled, it equals 696, as you can see here. And the left column showing us the sellers when their volume is totaled, it's 574. Subtracting them gives us the delta, which is 122, a positive delta for this example. I want to clarify something obvious. A positive delta doesn't necessarily relate to a green candle. It could be a green candle with a negative delta or a red candle with a positive delta. It's about volume and isn't related to exactly how the candle closes. The next concept, or the main concept of this session, is cumulative volume delta, or CVD. What is it? The CVD, Cumulative Volume Delta, is a useful tool that takes the delta values for each candle and sums them up to create an understandable indicator. How does it work? Well, look, we have a series of candles. Now we've learned how delta is calculated. And as we said, CVD is the accumulation of these deltas. What's this? This is your CVD chart. In your platform, when you open the CVD indicator or chart, it shows it exactly like this. At the start of the session, it begins calculating the CVD from 0. And how do we aggregate those deltas together? For example, let's say we have a green candle and the delta it gives us is positive, say, plus 12. Well, we said that at the start of the session, the CVD is calculated from 0. So at the start of the session, the first candle gave us a delta of 12. Therefore, CVD is 0 plus 12, which is 12. So on the chart, it draws a line for us up to 12. The next candle, the delta it gives us is what? A positive delta of 8. So previously, how much was the CVD? It was 12. Add 8 to it, and what does it become? It becomes 20. As a result, on the CVD chart, a line is drawn up to 20. The next candlestick, for example, is a bearish candlestick and gives us a negative delta. A negative delta of 24, which is added to 20 because CVD is the accumulation of delta. As a result, their accumulation together becomes negative 4, and it's plotted on the CVD chart down to negative 4. The next candle comes in, its delta is also negative, negative 16. It accumulates with the previous CVD and becomes negative 20. As a result, our CVD at this moment becomes negative 24, and it will be drawn for you like this. As a result, your indicator, your CVD chart, will start calculating like this. And it shows the data to you like this. Now, how do we use this? What do we do with it in the market? We have a concept called CVD divergence, meaning Cumulative Volume Delta divergence, and in this chart, we've brought different concepts for you. Look, friends, when I open NinjaTrader, you can see the price chart, and right below it, there's the Cumulative Volume Delta indicator or chart. The CVD chart, as I mentioned, starts calculating the deltas from the very beginning of the session, starting from 0, accumulates them, and displays the result for you. In this way, it displays the entire session to you. And we want to compare this price and CVD simultaneously with each other and see if there is a divergence, what that divergence is, and what concept it gives us. We have two concepts related to an uptrend, meaning if this happens or that happens, it's predicted that the market will go up. It's predicted that the market will become bullish. It's predicted that the market will move in a bullish way. Or we have two concepts where if either of these happens, it's predicted that the market will turn bearish. It's predicted that a decline will occur, the price will drop, and now, how is it? Look, we have a section called regular price, which is just our normal price, and we also have a section called exaggerated price. Now I'll explain it to you. See, in the price, we see that we've hit a lower low, meaning the price has moved downwards, and conversely, the CVD has moved upwards. What does that mean? See, what is the CVD, that volume delta, accumulating for us? The aggressors, meaning whatever volume the aggressors hit, it comes and accumulates it for us, sums it up, and when it's going up, it's telling me what? That the buying pressure is increasing. Buyers are showing up more, so when this has increased and the price is coming down, it's telling me what? Exhausted sellers. And what's its name? Bullish CVD divergence. When I saw this concept, it was predicted that sellers were getting exhausted and buyers were taking control of the market. As a result, it's possible that prices will rise and the market will turn bullish. Now, there's an exaggerated part to it, meaning something that shows us this concept much more clearly and in a more exaggerated way. What is it? When these lower lows become level with each other. This is much clearer than that. Why? Because when seller exhaustion occurs, it means the seller is tired and there are no more sellers. Exhaustion has occurred in that area, making it harder to hit a lower bottom. There's no seller left to drive the price lower, so a lower bottom is definitely harder to form. As a result, this is telling us in a more exaggerated and emphatic way that buyers have taken control of the market and that sellers are getting exhausted. So this is the more exaggerated concept. You'll understand it better with examples. The following fundamental concept is the complete polar opposite, meaning the price is moving upward, selling pressure has been created, and it's called hidden bullish CVD divergence. selling pressure is being absorbed, meaning the selling pressure is being taken in. You see that aggressive sellers have increased in the market, yet the price keeps going higher. Selling pressure is being absorbed. The next two concepts related to a market downturn are as follows. If the price makes a higher high, but conversely, the CVD moves downward. The concept here is called bearish CVD divergence, and it's buyer exhaustion. Exhausted buyers? Meaning that, hey, buyers are tired now, aggressive sellers are taking over the market, and it also has an exaggerated and emphatic state. A shooter pattern signaling exhaustion has set in. It occurs when there are double peaks. Well, when buyer fatigue sets in and the buyer is no longer interested in purchasing, it definitely becomes harder to reach a higher peak. To hit a higher peak, it's hit the same level. This means the exhaustion is much clearer, much more obvious, more emphatic, more exaggerated, okay? So this concept is about buyer exhaustion, and as a result, it tells us that the market is going to drop, it's going to be bearish, it's going to be a bear market. The next concept, called hidden bearish CVD divergence, tells me that, hey, the price hits a lower low and goes down, while conversely, my CVD moves upward, meaning aggressive buyers increase. What is this telling me? It says it's absorbing the buying pressure. It's absorption of buying pressure, you see? The pressure from aggressive buyers has increased, but the price is coming down. Lower. What does this mean? It means, hey, the buyer's pressure is being absorbed. These two, you see, don't have an exaggerated concept because their exaggerated concept is a weaker notion, and for that reason, we don't teach it. If anyone teaches you this, know that they are making a mistake. Why? Look, right now when buyer aggressors have increased and the price is going down, it means their buying pressure is being absorbed. Well, suppose this now comes and hits a peak at the same level as this one. This means that, well, these buyers have been able to overcome the absorption pressure that's happening. Meaning they might break through, they might take control of the market and turn the market bullish. As a result, we never come and teach the exaggerated version of this, because its exaggerated form will be a weak concept for a decline. I hope you've grasped the point. It's perfectly natural that if it hits a peak identical to this, it means the buyer's strength has prevailed and the probability of a drop decreases slightly. But when it's hitting a lower peak, it means that, man, it's really being absorbed. The power of passives, the passive sellers in the market, is high. Those passives that are being sold, who are they being sold to? To aggressive buyers. Their power is greater, which is why they're pushing the price to a lower level. Now let's go through some examples. You'll understand better. If you're confused, don't worry at all. In the examples I'll give, you will understand completely. Let's move on to our first example. Well, we see that the price is moving downwards and CVD is doing the same. Suddenly we see that a divergence has occurred. Where? In this area. In what way? I see that, man, I'm hitting a lower low in price, my price is coming down, but I'm hitting a higher low in CVD, my CVD is going higher. Which concept is it? This first concept, price lower low, as you can see, CVD conversely, higher low. What's it called? Bullish CVD divergence. A divergence that is bullish, and what state does it have? It's regular, the same normal state we envisioned for it. What's the concept? Exhausted sellers. It means that basically buyers are probably getting tired now. A kind of buyer fatigue has set in. The buyer no longer has the desire to buy or to continue this movement. The buyers are going to come and take their place, and naturally you see that the market has also turned bullish. The interesting part is that as the price goes a bit further, its exaggerated state also emerges. Specifically, you can clearly see that the market price gradually comes down and eventually forms a horizontal level that is exactly equal to the previous significant low. This is an exaggerated state that shows us that aggressive buyers have entered, the sellers have become exhausted, there is a sense of fatigue among the sellers, and we no longer have aggressive sellers. As a result, it couldn't hit a lower low anymore. It's more exaggerated, more hyperbolic, more obvious. It's shouting in the market. As a result, it's a bullish concept, and as you can see, the price also moves upwards. That was our first example. Bullish CVD divergence, which was the exaggerated type. Let's move to the next example. We see the price has moved. Now, the start of the session was here where CVD was calculated, and we suddenly encounter a divergence. Where is the divergence in this area? We see it's given us a higher low in a higher high, it's made a higher high in price and a lower high in CVD, meaning the price went up. CVD came down. What's the concept? This is the concept. You see a higher peak in price and a lower peak in CVD. What is it telling me? It's telling me that buyer fatigue has set in. The buyer is no longer present aggressively. They're tired of buying. The aggressive buyers are gradually disappearing. They're packing up and leaving. And what is this situation called? It's called bearish CVD divergence. This is the regular standard form. The concept it gives us is a bearish downward one, indicating that the market is about to drop. As the price moves further along, you see that its exaggerated state is also shown, meaning that the price comes and hits a peak at the same level as that one. But CVD is still moving downwards, and this state is called exaggerated, which is quite natural really. Buyer exhaustion has truly set in, as it can't create a higher peak for me. Consequently, we envision a downward and falling concept for it, and as you can see, that's exactly what happens next. Let's move on to the next example, right here, as you can see. Also, from the start of the session, CVD has been calculated. We see a divergence in this area. In what way? We see it's made a higher high in price and a lower high in CVD. What's the concept? Again, the same bearish CVD divergence concept, regular. It's the regular type, and it's actually talking to us about something known as buyer exhaustion. Look, the buyer aggressors here are gradually starting to leave. Aggressive sellers are taking their place, and there are no more buyer aggressors. The market is set to drop. Buyer exhaustion has occurred. Exhausted buyers, and as a result, the price drops, and as you can see, there's no requirement for the exaggerated state to necessarily show up in the market. If you look at its exaggerated form, you'd have to throw your hat in the air. It's showing you things much more sharply now. Let's move on to our next example. In this example, we see that there's a peak that's formed at the same level as its previous peak. But in CVD, it has given us a lower high, and CVD is moving downwards. In our concepts, it's about exhausted buyers again, meaning buyer fatigue. There likely won't be any buyers present aggressively, and it's also in an exaggerated state. This bearish CVD divergence is showing us a very sharp move in the market. Even as the price moves forward, the same thing happens again, and it experiences that price level once more, while the CVD continues to drop further into the negative and, in an exaggerated way, is clearly signaling it. That the price is going to drop, the bearish concept of exhausted buyers, and as a result, that's exactly what happens. The interesting thing here is that as we gradually move forward in the ongoing continuation of the drop that we received from this point, we can actually see another divergence. And in what way does this happen? In the sense that a lower high is being formed in the price, while at the same time, a higher high is forming in the CVD, or Cumulative Volume Delta. Meaning, in price, the value is going down, and CVD, conversely, is going up. What is the concept here? The concept here is hidden bearish CVD divergence, which is telling me what? It's saying that buying pressure is being absorbed, meaning that buying pressure is being taken in. Look, it's perfectly clear here that the buyer aggressors have entered the scene, but the price is, what, still moving lower? What does this actually mean? It means the pressure from these aggressive buys is being absorbed. By whom is it being absorbed? By passive sellers who have placed orders above the price passively and are absorbing the buyer aggressors. As shown in this image, you can see that the passive sellers have placed their orders. They are our passive sellers who have placed their orders above the price. The buyer aggressors have entered the field and started lifting the offer, but it's being sold off quickly to the passive sellers, and the power of the passive sellers is so great that it's absorbing all this pressure from the aggressive buyers, and as a result, the price is moving lower. This is called hidden bearish CVD divergence. I hope you've grasped this concept well. In this state, who controls the market? The passives, and it's the passives who are driving the market. So, do you really want to move on to the next example? I mean, you don't have any doubts or issues with this part? This is how many gurus trick you and teach you concepts that they haven't even mastered themselves. And as a trader, you enter the market and see that, oh, nothing went the way it was supposed to. And you're left in the dark and in ignorance, just like this image you see here. Let me put your mind at ease, friends. The concepts they teach about delta divergence in Iran don't go beyond these two. Exhausted sellers and exhausted buyers, bullish CVD divergence and bearish CVD divergence. And these concepts related to hiddens, meaning the concepts of absorption, whether for sellers or buyers, are usually what the foreigners teach. But whether foreign or Iranian, they generally struggle with hidden and absorption concepts. Meaning, as a trader, you'll face a dilemma tomorrow, getting stuck in a mess and not knowing what to do. When you ask your teacher, they give contradictory answers, and let me be honest with you, they'll just brush you off because they don't even know it themselves. They haven't mastered it. They don't know the concepts they taught you. But don't worry, I know it and I'll teach you. Now let's see exactly what that mess you get stuck in is. Look, friends, let's assume we're in the dark and in ignorance, just like this image, and we have no idea about the market's future, and we want to see in the current market, based on the concepts we have, what's going to happen. What do I see? For example, I see a lower high, meaning a peak lower than the previous peak, and I see a significantly higher high compared to before in my CVD, just as I'm seeing here at this point in time. And well, this concept is telling me that this is a bearish concept. Buying pressure absorbed, meaning the selling pressure being applied here is being absorbed. As a result, the market is going to turn bearish and it's going to crash. Looking a bit closer, I see that, I can see a lower low in price, similar to this, and also a higher low in my CVD, similar to this. This is, a bullish concept, and it relates to exhausted sellers. Seller exhaustion. What does that mean? It means sellers are exhausted and have no desire to buy, and the market is supposed to turn bullish? This is where you get stuck in the mud even worse, and so does your teacher, because they don't know it. Look, I'm not a guru at all, I'm a trader, and I actually know that many of you who are following our channel and YouTube, following our tutorials, are gurus yourselves. You're following us to learn better, so tell me, what answer do you give to your own students? Tell me when they're stuck like this between two 50-50 concepts. Let me see, come on, I'm waiting. What? There's no certainty in the market? Well done. Even my aunt knows there's no certainty, you guys. You've provided a concept. A trader is stuck between two concepts. What do you mean there's no certainty? What kind of nonsense is that? Answer me. What? We need to get confirmation? Excuse me, if we wait to get confirmation, we've already missed the entry opportunity. And then, what are we even getting confirmation from? This is something you can't answer. But don't worry, friends, I'll give you the answer. Let's look at an example of selling pressure absorption, so we can see the hidden bullish CVD together. This is an example we haven't seen. Let's look at this too, and I'll give you the answer. In this example, the price is moving, and so is the CVD, naturally, but here I see a divergence within it. In what way? In this way, I see a higher low in the price, and I also see a lower low in my CVD. What's the concept? You see the price moved up, and the CVD moved down. Hidden bullish CVD divergence. What's it telling me? It's telling me that, look, selling pressure is being absorbed. It's being absorbed. What does that mean? It means the CVD is literally talking to you saying, aggressive sellers have increased in the market, but their pressure is being absorbed. Why? Because the market is in the hands of passive buyers. How? Passive buyers have placed their orders and sellers are just hitting the bid. They keep hitting it. But well, the power is with the passive buyers and they absorb the aggressive selling pressure. As a result, the price goes higher. But as you see, the price went higher. Let's imagine that we have no idea about its future. What I see is, I see a higher low in the price, similar to this, and I have a lower low in my CVD. I see it's telling me what? The concept is selling pressure absorbed. Meaning it's a concept where the market is supposed to go bullish. But wait a second, I see something else here too. What? This. I see a higher high in my price, similar to here, and also a lower high in my CVD, similar to here. Well, this is the exhausted buyer concept. What does that mean? It means the buyer is tired of buying. They won't do any more aggressive buying. Meaning the market is going to drop. Which of these concepts is it? You're getting confused. Look, friends, I'll give you the answer. If you have to choose one concept between these two, meaning if we are to, for example, consider this concept where the absorption of selling pressure is supposed to occur, and we're not supposed to see exhausted buyers. See, what is this concept telling me? It says there will be no more buyers. So first of all, I must see in the market whether there are any buyers or not. If there were, the exhausted buyer concept is cancelled. And secondly, if the concept is selling pressure absorbed, I must see in the market that my selling pressure is being absorbed. In what way? I must see that there are passive orders that are absorbing these aggressive ones. But in what way? Here it is. And this is Bookmap. Yes, friends, those who are with us on Bookmap can easily see this matter with their own eyes. See, friends, what is shown to you in Bookmap and what you can see is in the context of level 2, and you can also see it in the footprint. There, you're essentially dealing with numbers. But here, the heat map shows it to you visually and faster. And since visual data reception is quicker, you can make decisions more easily and faster in the moment. As you can see, we agreed to say, if there's buyer exhaustion, I must see if a buyer exists or not. I see that, oh, there is a buyer in my market. Here they are, the buyer is absolutely thirsty for liquidity. Look at how they swallowed this liquidity. So the buyer is aggressive, the buyer exists, they're not exhausted. No fatigue has occurred on the buyer's part. And secondly, I see the passive buyers. I see how they've blocked below the price and absorbed the buyer's pressure. The aggressive sellers who are hitting can't go any lower because the passive buyers have more power in the market. When I see these in my Bookmap, or those working with level 2, see and understand them in their footprint concepts, seeing the absorption, they can correctly choose the selling pressure absorbed concept from those two, and you correctly see that the market responds to it, friends.